The Golden Age of Athens by Ptolemy Charles. The Golden Age of Athens, also known as the Age of Pericles, began in 478 BCE when the Athenians defeated the invading Persians. A golden age is marked by political, economic, and cultural growth. In this text, Ptolemy Charles discusses the Athenian government during the Golden Age of Athens. The year was 430 BCE, and Pericles stood ready to deliver the funeral oration honoring those who had died in the first year of the Peloponnesian War. It was an Athenian practice to honor war dead every year, and as custom dictated, the Athenians chose a leading citizen to deliver the speech. According to the historian of Thucydides, who may have been present at the event, Pericles had as much to say about the greatness of Athens as he did about the heroism of its soldiers. We do not use a constitution that copies the laws of our neighbors, but we are a pattern for certain people rather than imitating others. We alone do not think that a man who avoids public affairs is minding his own business. Instead, we call him useless. In short, I say that this entire city is the school of Hellas. Rise of hoi polloi. To understand how Athens became the, quote, school of Hellas, we must look back 50 years to 480 BCE. It was in that year that the Greeks fought the invading Persians at Salamis and won a great naval victory. The Athenians had made the decision earlier to desert Athens and put their trust in the wooden walls of their ships. Their navy consisted of triremes, which were vessels that had 3 banks of oars and required a highly skilled crew. Unlike the cavalry or the infantry, where you had to be wealthy enough to pay for your own equipment, just about anyone could join the crew of a trireme. So it can be said that for the first time in Greek history, hoi polloi, the majority of the people, were important. After the Athenian victory, the Spartans retreated into self-imposed isolation in their city-state to the south. The Athenians, meanwhile, formed a loose coalition called the Delian League. The Athenians also collected funds from the city-states that joined the league. The organization's stated purpose was to finance a naval force capable of repelling Persian advances in the future. But plans changed, and the Athenians used the money to pay for the rebuilding of their Acropolis. Among the structures involved in this project were the Parthenon, the Propylaea, and a huge gold ivory statue of the goddess Athena. Today, many of these structures still stand on the Acropolis, eternal symbols of the glory that was Greece. Radical democracy. Around 492 BCE, a radical member of the Democratic Party, an Athenian named Ephialtes, succeeded in splitting the council of former leaders and dividing their authority among the boule, or the council, the ecclesia, which means the assembly of the people, and the courts. This was the beginning of what modern scholars call a, quote, radical democracy, because most offices and positions were filled by drawing lots rather than by representative election. In theory, this meant that all Athenian citizens could have a direct voice in the day-to-day running of the government. Who was a citizen? Of the entire population in Athens, only men and women with Athenian parents were considered true Athenians. Yet thousands of resident foreigners, called metics, also lived in the city. They worked, paid taxes, and participated in the cultural life of the city. They could not, however, take part in the government. Most Athenians owned at least 1 or 2 slaves to work in the house and take care of children. Large potteries and other industries employed larger forces of slave labor. In addition, much of Athens' wealth came from the silver mines of Laurion, where the entire workforce consisted of slaves. One Athenian orator claimed that there were 150,000 100,000 slaves in Attica. Women led extremely restricted lives and were excluded from government entirely. Unless a free woman was participating in a religious festival, she was rarely seen outside of her own house. So, who were the citizens of Athens? Any free man whose parents were both Athenians, who was above the age of 18, and who had completed 2 years of military service. The Boule. This council had been established by Cleisthenes in 507 BCE. It consisted of 500 men chosen by lot, a total of 50 from each of the 10 demes, which were districts. Anyone who wished to serve in the Boule had to be 31 or older. Originally, a member had to own a certain amount of property, but by the time Pericles took office in Athens, that requirement had been abolished, possibly by Pericles himself. Pericles may also have established a daily wage for those serving on the Boule. The term of office was a year, and an Athenian citizen could only be a member twice in his lifetime. The Boule met every day, so it would have been a time-consuming responsibility. Members drafted proposals, decrees, and laws, which were then sent to the ecclesia for approval. Boule members also investigated and supervised the magistrates and other officers. The ecclesia. The Boule brought proposals before the citizen assembly. The members met at the Sphinx, a hill in central Athens that could accommodate around 6,000 people, as certain decisions required a vote by at least that number. Membership was open to every citizen who had served in the military for at least 2 years. In the age of Pericles, there were probably between 400,000 or 40,000 and 60,000 citizens who were, by default, members of the ecclesia. Surviving accounts show that it was sometimes difficult to reach even the minimum attendance number. The ecclesia was directly responsible for many important decisions. Among these were the election of Athenians to the board of 10 generals, ratification of laws, and even the declaration of war. Power to the people. Democratic politicians, including Ephialtes and Pericles, introduced reforms that were intended to encourage broad popular participation in the daily affairs of the government. For example, paying members of the Boule ensured that citizens who could not afford to lose a day's wages could now serve. Pericles did propose the law that restricted Athenian citizenship to men whose mothers and father were both Athenian citizens. The intent most likely was to weaken the network of connections between aristocratic members of city-states throughout Greece. Pericles' goal was to make Athenian citizenship more important than old family ties. Contemporary critics of Pericles argued that he gave the people too much power. These critics thought that most people did not have the education, the free time, or the insight to govern responsibly. Both the historian Thucydides and the comic poet Aristophanes complained that the ecclesia was fickle and foolish. According to them, when a thoughtful and brilliant strategist such as Pericles steered the will of the people, the city-state ran smoothly. After Pericles died, they saw that the ecclesia was at the mercy of any persuasive speaker.